What is up, y'all? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be talking about the Detroit Lions cornerback Darius Slay, because some other moves happened, I think it was yesterday, and it's kind of set the stage for what we're looking at with Darius Slay here. So let's get it started. Usually we have a few videos, and I may do one of those. I may do Detroit Lions news, but this is really just something that's probably going to be on its own because there's a lot to talk about here when it comes to Darius Slay. I mean, this deserves its own video, right? It's Darius Big Play Slay. I almost said freaking Slay, but it's Big Play Slay, so I'll use his nickname. Okay, Darius Big Play Slay. Yesterday, I believe it was yesterday, AJ Bouye was actually traded. So AJ Bouye was the cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was a pretty good cornerback, I would say. One of the top ones in the league. Not the top cornerback, but one of the better cornerbacks in the league. And he was traded for a 4th-round pick. All right, so just think about that for a second. If you didn't know this, a 4th-round pick for AJ Bouye, who was, I would say, maybe on the edge of top 10 cornerbacks in the league, maybe somewhere like top 20, top 15, something like that. At least, you know, he's been a solid cornerback, and with his age, it's not too old, so it's not a bad trade. It's actually really good for the Denver Broncos, who got AJ Bouye. But again, the Jacksonville Jaguars only got a 4th pick in return. So why did they do this? Well, they were kind of just trying to like restart, right? They're trying to just save money. They're trying to get rid of all their contracts, and they're kind of just rebuilding that whole defense, which is crazy because they just had like a really good team a few years ago. I mean, I thought this team was going to the Super Bowl a few years ago. Crazy how things change. Like us, we were in the playoffs, and now we're 3 wins. But anyways, crazy how things change. But AJ Bouye was traded yesterday for a 4th-round pick. And what does that have to do with Big Play Slay? Well, it has a lot to do with Darius Slay, because Darius Slay is a guy that we are right now, I guess, looking for potential trades. Now, there are really 3 options when it comes down to it. 2 options that everybody looks at, but I think there's like a 3rd hidden one. Not a hidden one, I've talked about it before, but I think that's one that we really have to look at. I guess there's 4 options, but the 4th option is kind of dumb. That'd be just cutting him. Don't do that. I don't like that option. But with the AJ Bouye trade, it kind of sets where we are with Darius Slay. But we're trying to figure out, what is Darius Slay worth, okay? What is he worth? And he could still be worth more than this. I think this kind of just like sets you up for what you believe he's worth. I mean, when you look at AJ Bouye, maybe the Jacksonville Jaguars were just like, you know what? We just took the first one. We just wanted anybody that would take that contract from us. So maybe we would get a lot more in return. But I think what this says, if we're just taking this and kind of going off what the AJ Bouye trade taught us, I would say, to me, this tells me that you're probably going to get a 3rd-round pick for Darius Slay. Maybe a player with him, but I'm thinking just 3rd-round pick, maybe like a 7th, something like that. A 3rd-round pick is kind of where I'm sitting right now. And for this video, we're going to pretend that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a 3rd-round pick for Darius Slay, all right? That's what we're going to pretend in this video. So some people are already freaking out, all right? Like, what the heck, 3rd-round pick? Let me give you a little bit of background on AJ Bouye before we get too far into this. He's a 28-year-old cornerback who has 2 years left on his deal, $13.5 million a year. It's actually going to be more than what Darius Slay is getting paid. That's what Darius Slay wants, the big money. Like, now, what he's asking for is going to be way more than what AJ Bouye is going to get, or what he's getting right now. But right now, Darius Slay is not one of the highest paid cornerbacks in the league. He's actually getting paid less here than AJ. His best year came in 2017 when he came up with 6 interceptions. His last 2 years, he's had 2 interceptions and 16 pass deflections combined, or passes defended combined. In 2018, he allowed 63% completion percentage, a 75 pass rating, and a 10% missed tackle percentage. And then in 2019, he allowed 65% completion percentage, a 101 pass rating, and 7% missed tackle percentage. So that was AJ Bouye. That's who AJ Bouye is. Let's throw in Darius Slay here so you can get a good feeling of who they are, like how they compare to each other. Darius Slay, who in 2017 as well had his best season with 8 interceptions, but in the last 2 years, Darius Slay has come with 5 interceptions and 30 passes defended. In 2018, he allowed 46.8% completion percentage, a 72 pass rating, and a 6.5% missed tackle percentage. Now, 2018 was definitely worse, but it still wasn't bad. Only allowing 56% completion percentage and 81 pass rating and 11% missed tackle percentage, with basically no rush. I'm not trying to use that as an excuse for Darius Slay, but I can use it as an excuse because honestly, we all know. Let's all be honest here, guys. We know we had no pass rush last season. It made a lot of our secondary look bad. It made all of our secondary players look bad. And still, Darius Slay looked pretty good. I mean, he didn't look great, but the numbers show that he played still pretty well, even though we didn't get a lot of pressure. So, looking at the numbers, Darius Slay is the better cornerback. The problem here is the age, and that Darius Slay's Darius Slay's deal is now up, right? Darius Slay, his contract has ended, and AJ Bouye still has 2 years remaining. So, the Denver Broncos are getting a player that they can keep around for 2 years, and we know they are losing Chris Harris to free agency. So the Denver Broncos are going to have AJ Bouye as their cornerback for 2 years, and the Detroit Lions, whoever we trade Darius Slay to, you're going to have him for this remaining year, and then you're going to have to extend him. So you probably, if you're going to trade for him, it's someone that has the money to extend him. You probably won't do it for a 1-year rental, but you might. I mean, I don't think you will, unless you think you're right on that verge and that's all you need. I don't know if there's any teams like that. Maybe like the Texans, maybe. I don't know if they would want to do that though, because that would, for 1 year, I don't know if they want to do that, but they could. I mean, they definitely could. He's the only guy getting $10 million this season, and then he could become a free agent. So Darius Slay wants the money, like I said, and now that we know this, now that we know that cornerback was worth a 4th-round pick, okay, because we don't know what the other offers were. We just know that he got a 4th round for them, so I'm assuming they took the best offer. That would make sense. So now that we know that this happened for a 4th-round pick, now I'm tending to believe that Darius Slay, based on that, is probably worth like a 3rd-round pick. At least that's what the rest of the league thinks. Now, personally, me, I would want a lot more than a 3rd-round pick. I've talked about this before. If I'm getting a 3rd-round pick only for Darius Slay, I'm probably declining that, and I'm going to go elsewhere, and I'm going to, just keep him or something else. But let's look at the 3 options, all right? What are the 3 options the Detroit Lions have currently with Darius Slay? What's that little third-hit one? Well, the first option is the obvious one, the one that everybody's talking about. That's trading Darius Slay. Trade Darius Slay away and try to get something in return, hopefully at least a 2nd-round pick. I think that's where everybody is. At least give me a 2nd-round pick. Well, after this, it may be only a 3rd-round pick. So for this video, we're going to act like it's a 3rd-round pick. If it's a 2nd, then that's obviously better. The 2nd option is extending him. Extending Darius Slay is the 2nd option. I think a lot of people do want to do that. At least Detroit Lions fans want to do that. I know a lot of guys that have hit me up and they're like, hey, man, we should extend Slay. And I'm not mad at you for saying that, because Darius Slay, who's been one of our most consistent and reliable players through all of the years, yes, he's asking for a lot of money, but he's still been really good and playing at a high level. The age is really what's concerning to everybody. And obviously, he's asking to get about $17 million annually, or average every single year. So that's a lot of money to pay for the Detroit Lions, who have a lot of holes to fill this offseason. But again, losing out on Darius Slay is automatically going to open up a huge hole on its own. I mean, think about this. We could be losing Graham Glasgow and Darius Slay. Think about those holes that you're opening up. Like, my goodness. So Darius Slay, definitely a hard one. And the final one, the 3rd option, I think, is letting him play through his deal. And I think this one slept on a lot, but I think it does make sense to a point. Kind of not. So, for example, let's say we get a 3rd-round pick for Darius Slay. Let's just say we get a 3rd-round pick for Darius Slay, and what would happen? Okay, so we trade away Darius Slay to whoever. They give us, I don't know, a 3rd-round pick, like the 80th pick in the draft. It's 3rd round, right? Yeah, somewhere there. Like, they give us a 3rd-round pick, and we also save $10 million. So if we trade away Darius Slay and we don't take a player in return and we just get a pick, we are saving $10 million, because that's what he's going to get this year. So we'll go from about $52 to about $62 million in cap room, which definitely helps, especially when you can take that money and potentially give it to a guy like Graham Glasgow or a replacement cornerback if you're not really set on bringing back Graham Glasgow. So that's how that would work out. If you run Slay through with the rest of his deal, which I know a lot of people are probably confused about, like, why would you keep him through the rest of his deal? That's not great for the future. It's not great for the future, but at the same time, might be great for the Lions coach's future. Like, let's think about this for a second. Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn have had 2 very bad seasons. I mean, Bob Quinn, I think he's even more on the hot seat than a lot of people give him credit for. I mean, that's not a good credit, but he's very on the hot seat to me. And Matt Patricia, after 2 really bad years, a lot of people call him for his job last year. He definitely needs to win. I'm not saying we have to go win a Super Bowl, but he needs to win some games. And losing a guy like Darius Slay is going to open up a lot of holes. And letting him play through his contract could be like a sleeper good option. Think about this. Darius Slay has 1 year remaining on his deal before he's looking to get that huge payday. And he's trying to get it this year. But if he doesn't get it this year, he's going to basically be forced to play this season and at a super high level. Already the concern around Darius Slay, and the reason, like, if Darius Slay was 26 years old and he was doing this, I'm sure we could get at least a 2nd. We might get a 1st-round pick for Darius Slay, like, no questions, because, like, he's 26 and he's one of the best. The age is what's so concerning, right? Because you don't know if he can keep it up. So Darius Slay, who would be on his final year at about 30 years old, would have to play his best football. Because think about this. If Darius Slay was kept here and he played bad, ain't no one paying him $17 million a year. It's not going to happen. I mean, heck, we might be able to go get him back in free agency at that point, because no one's going to pay him that much money if he has a bad down year. Because now all of a sudden they're looking at you went from 17, which is your best, 18, which was good, 19, which was a little bit worse, and then 20 was even worse. You're like, oh, yeah, and he's getting older? Nah, I ain't paying you that much money. You might get like 10. So now Darius Slay is in a position where he's like, all right, I need to ball out if I want this huge contract. So Darius Slay, in my eyes, would probably have the best season since 2017 of his career. I really think he could. I think he still got it, man. He still got it. And especially with that on his mind that, hey, I need to ball out or I ain't going to get paid, he's going to ball out, which is great for the Lions coaches and GM, because they need the team to win some football games. And having a guy like Darius Slay, who's at his best, who's playing his hardest. Some people would say he didn't play his hardest last season. I'm not going to really say anything on that because I don't think there's a stat for me to back that up. I can't say he didn't play hard because, like, what am I going to look at here? Like, the numbers show with a bad pass rush, he was still one of the best cornerbacks in the league. So for me, there's not much I can really say there because I don't have, like, much evidence to back that up. So I won't get into that. But if, you know, for the people that do think he didn't play as hard last year, he's definitely going to be playing very hard this year if he doesn't get a contract this offseason by the Lions or someone else. And then finally, extending Darius Slay. Now, some people want to extend Darius Slay, some people don't. And like I said, you're giving him about $16 to $17 million average if you do it this offseason. If you do it this offseason, that's what you're going to give him. Now, the good thing is, Darius Slay is going to be happy. You're going to have a cornerback, and you're going to lock him up for the future, and you probably won't have to worry about that for a few years. The bad thing is you're spending a lot of money where you already have a lot of holes, and you're giving an aging cornerback a lot of money. Now, how long would you extend him for? I would say at the max 4 years. You can't go over 4 years. By that time, he'll be like 33. If you're paying him over 33, that much money, I think that's crazy. 4 years would be the max. I think 3 years is kind of where you would try to get it if you could extend him. So obviously, you know, that spends a lot of our money. We'd go from like 52, we go way down. We probably have like a $15 million a year, a little bit backloaded. We'd probably drop to like, I don't know, 30-some million dollars in cap space, high 30s in cap space, which isn't awful, but it's not great, okay, especially with the other holes we have to fill. You could just keep him for his final year, and then you wouldn't have to spend anything, and you would still have him. The problem is, after this year, you basically get no return. You're not getting anything if you hold him out for final year. Yeah, I think you may get like a draft compensation, but I'm pretty sure that's only a 7th-round pick if you get one, so that's not very good. Like, a 7th-round pick, I mean, that's pretty much nothing, and that's like at the very end. It's not really going to help you at all. But that may be wrong on that. I wasn't exactly sure. I tried to look that up and understand. So let's go back to the first option, trading Darius Slay. So you trade Darius Slay, we get a 3rd-round pick, we save $10 million. What are our options? Well, you have 2 options, all right? 1, you go in free agency and you find a replacement. And I think that's what you have to do no matter what. If you trade Darius Slay, you got to find a replacement. I mean, we're talking about cornerbacks to go across from Slay, even if we don't trade Darius Slay. You got to go get someone in free agency. Now, it doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money. It just means you have to go get somebody. There's tons of options. First option, Chris Harris. A lot of people like Chris Harris. He's 30 years old. He's been one of the most consistent players throughout the league. A couple years ago, he was an all-pro player. He was very good. He's a solid cornerback. He's even better in the slot, but we have Justin Coleman. Now, if Coleman moved to the outside, it would change everything. Then we can mix it all up, and then that changes Amani's role. I wouldn't do that. Chris Harris isn't bad on the outside. He's not great either. I think a 2-year deal would make some sense for Chris Harris. If you trade away Darius Slay, you could spend pretty much the $10 million, give it over to Chris Harris, and now you have a cornerback that's Chris Harris, Amani Oruwariye, and then potentially a draft pick. Then in the second option could be a guy like Byron Jones. Talked about him yesterday. He's one of the top cornerbacks. However, you're going to be paying Byron Jones, who's just a little bit younger than Darius Slay, a couple years younger. You're going to be paying Byron Jones probably as much as you're paying Slay. Maybe a little bit less, but about the same amount. You're probably giving him like $16 million a year just because he's a little bit younger. He's not as good, but his age is really what's such a big factor. A lot of people love the age, and he's healthy. James Bradberry is a guy I would not sleep on, though. James Bradberry, to me, is one of those guys that are very, very interesting. Very young cornerback, heck of a year last season, and he loves to tackle. He has 220 tackles in 3 years, which to me is something I'd love to see. Didn't mean to make that rhyme again. I'm really good at rhyming on here. But James Bradberry is a very young cornerback. The problem is, once again, you're going to give him a big deal. But would you rather give a guy like Bradberry a big deal who's only 26 years old, I think he's 26 years old, who's younger, you give him a big deal. Yes, you're going to save $10 million with Darius Slay for 1 year, and yeah, you're going to be paying a guy like him probably the same amount of Slay, but you're getting a younger cornerback that's going to last longer, and then you get a draft pick in return. Next up, a guy would be Bradley Roby, who's kind of a slot and outside, very versatile type of player. He's 27 years old, not a bad option. Jimmy Smith, who's a very old, not very old, but he's an older cornerback. He'd be like a veteran option. He also has missed 6 games last year, so I think he'd be a cheap option for like a 1-year rental kind of thing. Ronald Darby, who's young, 26, but 20 missed games because of injuries in the last 3 years, so that's concerning. Good when he's healthy. Obviously, when he's not healthy, he's not good. So I think there's a lot of options to replace him, and I think the most logical option to replace him is either going with a very young cornerback that's like 26 years old, giving him a huge deal if you trade Darius Slay, or going with a older cornerback like a Chris Harris, like a Jimmy Smith, holding him for 1 or 2 years, drafting a guy like Jeffrey Okudah and putting him on the other side and keeping Amani for the future. That way, when that guy, his contract runs up, you're using Amani, and your number 2 is Jeffrey Okudah, or however you want to go like that, or it's Jeffrey Okudah and Amani. That would be your 1 and 2, and Coleman's still in the slot because he's locked up for a while. So I think the options here you know, I'm not really telling you guys what I think the best option is here. I think you could go with a lot of different ways. I wouldn't be mad if we held him for his final year of his contract. I think that actually can make sense, and it would be really good for the future of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. Obviously, you know, it's important to build for the future, but you can't build for the future if you're not here, and they won't be here if they don't win games. So keeping around Slay is great, and you're not spending any more money to just hold him. Now, he could hold out. Well, if he holds out for his final year looking to get a huge payday, he may not get that huge payday, right? We see this before. Guys that hold out may not get the huge payday, but a lot of times they're seeing this from guys that are like 26. Not 30, going on to 31 years old, right? You're getting a really old cornerback who's not even playing, so you don't know what you're going to get, and you're going to give this guy $16 million a year? I don't know about that one. So I don't think he would hold out. No, maybe hold out of training camps and stuff like he's done before. I don't think he would hold out of games, though. I think he would play in those. So you could either do that, or you could just extend him. You could say, forget it. We're going to give you a 4-year deal. You've been great to us. We've been so grateful for what you've done for this team. You've stuck around, and you've been huge for us. You've been one of the most reliable options defensively, even though we've had all these bad years. Yes, you're going to be older, but we have confidence that you can keep up to a good enough level of play where this can make sense. Or the other one, you trade him away, you get a 3rd-round pick, you save $10 million, you sign someone in free agency, and then you probably are drafting Jeffrey Okudah. You don't have to. If you trade back, you get a guy like Christian Fulton, CJ Henderson, possibly got in the 2nd round, like Bryce Hall. I like Bryce Hall a lot, that kind of thing. Or you go get Okudah. I mean, that's kind of where you're sitting right now. Obviously, if you get a cornerback or you keep Slay, Okudah is not a must, and then you could potentially go elsewhere like a Simmons, and then, you could have a really good defense for 1 year. We've seen teams go all at it for 1 year. The Rams kind of just went all out for it. Now, they're not a great team anymore, but they're not a bad team anymore. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. Which option would you go with? I kind of just wanted to get them out there for you guys. Personally, I think all of these options can make sense. It's just you have to do it the right way, right? You have to go about it the right way. Extending him would be okay with me. Obviously, the lower we can get that deal. Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn have said everything's on the line, right? They are not counting out anything. They could still extend him. They could still, ride him through his final year, and they could still trade him, right? So they're looking at everything. And now that I think he's a 3rd-round pick, now if you get a 2nd-round pick for him, that changes the game completely. But for the whole AJ Bouye thing, I think you're probably going to get a 3rd for him. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. Which way are you going about this? Which option are you taking? Thank you, Prop, for watching, and I'm out.